The ultimatum, the Central Assembly Hall floated in neutral space, a massive crystalline structure built by the Galactic Coalition 3 centuries ago. Inside its transparent walls, representatives from 67 different species gathered in the grand chamber. The air processors worked overtime to accommodate beings who breathed everything from methane to pure oxygen. Gravity fields adjusted across the floor, creating zones where each species could exist comfortably. Today, the chamber buzzed with anxiety. Something terrible was about to happen, and everyone could feel it. Ambassador Marcus Rivera sat in the human delegation section, a modest area near the eastern wall. His gray hair was neatly combed, and his dark suit was perfectly pressed. At 61 years old, he had spent the last 15 years representing Earth in galactic affairs. He had negotiated trade agreements, resolved disputes, and built friendships across the stars. But nothing in his diplomatic career had prepared him for this moment. Across the chamber, the Calyx delegation occupied the largest section. There were 30 of them, each standing over 3 meters tall. Their exoskeletons gleamed like polished obsidian, and their 6 limbs moved with predatory grace. 4 arms and 2 powerful legs made them formidable in any environment. Their heads resembled ancient earth beetles with massive mandibles that clicked and scraped when they spoke. Supreme Commander Wraith stood at the center speaking platform. He was the largest Calyx present, his exoskeleton adorned with metal plates that marked his countless military victories. His compound eyes swept across the chamber, calculating, measuring, judging every species present. The translation devices everyone wore crackled to life as Wraith began to speak. His voice was deep and resonant, filled with absolute confidence. The Calyx Empire has been patient with the younger species of this coalition. We have tolerated inefficiency. We have overlooked weakness. We have allowed primitive cultures to occupy valuable systems that could be better utilized. This patience ends today. Murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. The Torvathi delegate, a floating being of luminous gas, pulsed with nervous yellow light. The Kryn ambassador, a bear-like creature covered in blue fur, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Everyone knew the Calyx had been expanding their territory aggressively for the past decade, but this sounded like something worse. Wraith continued, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The human species currently controls 9 star systems. Their military consists of 52 registered vessels. They possess limited defensive capabilities and no significant offensive technology. Their systems contain resources that the Empire requires for our continued expansion. Therefore, humanity will surrender complete control of all 9 systems to the Calyx Empire within 48 standard hours. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Several smaller species began protesting immediately. This was unprecedented. The Coalition had rules against such naked aggression. There were supposed to be arbitration processes, negotiation periods, and peaceful resolutions. Marcus Rivera remained seated, his face calm. Inside, his heart pounded, but he had learned long ago never to show fear in these halls. He watched Wraith carefully, noting how the Calyx commander's eyes gleamed with anticipation. This was not just about resources. This was about dominance. The Torvathi delegate's voice echoed through the translation system, high and wavering. This violates every principle of the Coalition Charter. You cannot simply demand surrender from a member species without cause or due process. Wraith turned toward the Torvathi, and even from across the chamber everyone could sense his contempt. The Coalition Charter is maintained by strength. The Calyx Empire has amassed a fleet of 12,000 warships. We control 143 star systems. Our military technology is superior to any other species present. He paused, letting his words sink in. The Charter means nothing without the power to enforce it. Humanity has 52 ships. We have 12,000. There is no negotiation here. There is only reality. Marcus Rivera stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned toward him. He walked to the human-speaking platform with measured steps, his shoes clicking softly on the crystalline floor. When he reached the platform, he placed both hands on its edges and looked directly at Wraith. The Empire's assessment of human military capability is accurate in one respect. We do indeed have 52 registered vessels in our active fleet. Marcus paused and a slight smile touched his lips. However, Supreme Commander, you have made a critical error in your calculations. Wraith's mandibles opened in what might have been laughter. An error? What error could humanity possibly point out to the Empire? You have assumed that what you can see represents all that exists. Marcus kept his voice level and professional. I strongly advise the Calyx Empire to reconsider this ultimatum. Humanity has no desire for conflict. We offer instead a peaceful resolution. Withdraw your demands and we will consider this matter closed. Confusion swept through the chamber. What was the human ambassador talking about? The Calyx had perfect intelligence networks. They had monitored human space for decades. The 52 human ships were all that existed. Every species knew this. The Coalition maintained public registries of all military vessels. There were no hidden ships. There could not be. Wraith's laughter grew louder, a harsh clicking sound that echoed off the crystalline walls. This is your response? Empty words and meaningless threats? The human species has shown itself to be composed of dreamers and fools. Perhaps extinction will teach the galaxy a valuable lesson about the cost of weakness. Marcus Rivera's expression did not change, but his voice grew colder. Supreme Commander, I have spent 15 years building relationships in this chamber. I have worked for peace, for cooperation, for understanding between our species, but I will not allow my people to be threatened with extinction because you have mistaken caution for weakness. Then you choose to fight? Wraith leaned forward. Your 52 ships against our 12,000? The Calyx commander gestured broadly to the assembled species. Let all present witness humanity's foolishness. When we crush the human systems in the coming days, let it be known that they chose this fate. Marcus looked around the chamber. Some species looked sympathetic but said nothing. Others avoided his gaze entirely. The Kryn ambassador met his eyes and gave a small nod of respect, but even she would not speak up. The Coalition was paralyzed by fear. No one wanted to be the Empire's next target. Very well, Marcus said quietly. If the Calyx Empire insists on this course of action, humanity will defend itself. But know this, Supreme Commander. We tried to warn you. What happens next is not our choice. It is yours. Wraith turned and strode from the chamber, his delegation following behind. The moment they left, chaos erupted. Representatives shouted questions at Marcus. What did he mean? What could humanity possibly do? Was this madness? Several species began calling for emergency sessions to discuss intervention, but everyone knew those discussions would take weeks. Humanity had 48 hours. Marcus returned to his quarters and activated his quantum-encrypted communication device. The technology was beyond anything the Coalition knew humans possessed, but that was the point. Earth had many secrets. He typed a simple message in a code that only 3 other people in the galaxy could read. Protocol Revelation. Authorization Sentinel Prime. Threat Level Omega. The message traveled through relay points hidden in dead systems and dark nebulae. It bypassed every Coalition monitoring station. Within minutes, it reached the Sol system and passed beyond it, traveling to a region of space that official human star charts listed as empty. Deep within the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Pluto's orbit, something received the signal. A structure existed there that would have been impossible to detect, even if someone knew where to look. It occupied a dimensional fold, existing partially outside normal space. The structure had been growing for 180 years, built in absolute secrecy by generations of humans who had dedicated their entire lives to a single purpose. Inside the command center of the ECS Eternal Vigil, alarms began to sound. Commander Sarah Chen sat in the central chair, surrounded by holographic displays showing every system status. She was 38 years old and had been born on this vessel. Her parents had served here. Her grandparents had helped build it. 3 generations of her family had lived and died preparing for this moment. Confirmation received. Her communications officer reported. Protocol Revelation is active. All hands to battle stations. Sarah took a deep breath and pressed the shipwide intercom. This is Commander Chen. We have received activation orders. The Calyx Empire has threatened Earth with extinction. We are going to show them why that was a mistake. All crews to deployment stations. All systems to full power. Prepare dimensional emergence. Throughout the massive vessel, 50,000 crew members moved to their positions. They had trained for this their entire lives. Every simulation, every drill, every moment of preparation had led to this. The ECS Eternal Vigil was more than a ship. It was a mobile city, a factory, a fortress, and a statement of human determination. In the propulsion section, engineers brought the reality displacement drives online. These were not ordinary faster-than-light engines. They were something humanity had developed in secret. Technology that would revolutionize galactic travel if anyone knew it existed. The drives did not push through space. They created a bubble of folded reality that could move between dimensions. In the weapons sections, fire control officers began charging systems that had never been used in actual combat. The weapons were based on principles that most galactic species considered theoretical: gravity manipulation, quantum disruption, spatial compression. Each weapon had been tested thousands of times in hidden dimensions, but never against a real target. In the hangar bays that ran the length of the ship's 780-kilometer hull, automated systems began waking dormant fighters and drones. There were hundreds of thousands of them, each one controlled by the ship's central artificial intelligence network. The AI had been developed carefully over decades, with safeguards that previous galactic civilizations had never imagined. It was not sentient, but it was brilliant. It could calculate 1 million combat scenarios simultaneously and adjust tactics in microseconds. Sarah watched her displays as system after system reported ready status. The Eternal Vigil had cost the resources of 3 entire star systems to build. It had consumed the dedicated work of millions of people who would never see it deployed. It represented the greatest secret humanity had ever kept. And now the galaxy was about to discover that Earth had never been as weak as it appeared. Supreme Commander. Wraith's armada assembled at the edge of Calyx space. 12,000 warships formed into a vast formation that stretched across millions of kilometers. Each ship was a masterpiece of Calyx engineering, heavily armored and bristling with plasma cannons. The Empire had conquered 17 species with fleets like this. Humanity would be the 18th. The order was given, and the armada jumped to faster-than-light travel. Their target was the human border system of New Vancouver, home to 2 million colonists and defended by 6 human patrol ships. It would be a slaughter. The galaxy would watch and understand that the Calyx Empire was not to be challenged. But as the Calyx fleet raced toward their target, something stirred in the hidden depths of the Sol system. The dimensional fold began to collapse. Reality rippled as something enormous forced its way back into normal space. The ECS Eternal Vigil emerged near Jupiter's orbit like a mountain materializing from nothing. Its hull was dark gray, covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow. The ship was shaped like a massive arrowhead, 780 kilometers from bow to stern and 340 kilometers at its widest point. Cities covered its upper surface, complete with buildings, streets, and parks where crew families lived. The sides were lined with weapon ports and hangar bays, each one the size of a small city. Every sensor in the Sol system screamed warnings about impossible energy readings. Earth's legitimate defense fleet, which had been preparing to mount a desperate last stand, suddenly received new orders. Fall back to defensive positions around Earth and wait. On the Moon, in the public observation centers where civilians watched the approaching Calyx threat with growing terror, people began to notice something. A new star had appeared near Jupiter. It was growing brighter, and it was moving. Sarah Chen stood on the command deck of the Eternal Vigil and looked at the tactical display showing the Calyx Armada approaching New Vancouver. She felt no hatred for the Calyx. This was not personal. This was simply necessity. Humanity had hoped this day would never come, but they had prepared for it anyway. All stations report ready, her executive officer announced. Sarah nodded. Then let us remind the galaxy why you do not threaten Earth with extinction. Dimensional drives to full power. Set course for New Vancouver. And someone send a message to Ambassador Rivera. Tell him we are coming. The Eternal Vigil began to move, and as it accelerated toward faster-than-light speed, reality itself seemed to bend around it. The ship did not just travel through space. It traveled through dimensions humanity had learned to access, moving in ways that made conventional physics irrelevant. In the Galactic Assembly, Ambassador Marcus Rivera received the confirmation message. He allowed himself a small smile. The Calyx Empire was about to receive an education, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity had been preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. The great reveal was beginning, and nothing would ever be the same. The demonstration, the Calyx Armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Vancouver system with overwhelming confidence. 12,000 warships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of the system's yellow star. Supreme Commander Wraith stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominants watching his tactical displays with satisfaction. 6 human patrol ships held position near the colony world, tiny specks against the vastness of his fleet. "This will be over in minutes," his tactical officer reported. "The human ships are powering up weapons, but their energy signatures are insignificant. They cannot harm us." Wraith's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. "Broadcast our demands across all frequencies. The colonists will surrender or watch their defenders die. Either way, this system belongs to the Empire within the hour." But before the communication could be sent, every sensor on every Calyx ship began screaming warnings. A massive gravitational distortion was forming in the space between the Armada and New Vancouver. Reality itself seemed to ripple and tear. Energy readings climbed to levels that made no sense. The Calyx sensors recalibrated again and again, unable to process what they were detecting. Then the ECS Eternal Vigil emerged from dimensional space. The supercarrier materialized like a continent appearing in the ocean. Its 780-kilometer hull dwarfed every ship in the Calyx Armada. The dark gray surface seemed to absorb light, making it look like a piece of the void itself had taken shape. Geometric patterns across its hull pulsed with soft blue light, and the energy radiating from its core made nearby space shimmer with distortion. For several seconds, the Calyx fleet simply stared. Officers shouted questions. Sensor operators checked and rechecked their readings. This could not be real. Nothing this massive could move through space. The power requirements alone would drain a star. The structural integrity needed to hold something this size together should be impossible. "What is that?" Wraith whispered, his usual confidence evaporating like morning frost. His compound eyes tried to process the scale of what he was seeing. The Dominance was the largest ship in the Calyx fleet at 8 kilometers long. This human vessel was almost 100 times larger. His science officer's voice shook as he reported. "Supreme Commander, sensors indicated is a ship. A human ship. Power readings are beyond our measurement capacity. The energy signature suggests technology we cannot identify. And," he paused, swallowing hard, "it is broadcasting human military identification codes." "Impossible," Wraith said, but the word sounded hollow even to himself. He could see it. Every camera on his ship showed the same thing. The impossible vessel hanging in space like a monument to capabilities the Calyx had never imagined. Then the hangar bays began to open. There were thousands of them, each one hundreds of meters across. From these bays, small craft began to emerge. At first they came in dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The stream of launching craft seemed endless. Each one was roughly the size of a Calyx patrol ship, sleek and angular with the same light-absorbing hull as the carrier. The Calyx tactical officers tried to maintain count. 1,000 fighters, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. The numbers kept climbing. 50,000, 100,000. The swarm of craft poured from the Eternal Vigil like a storm of metal locusts, each one taking position with mathematical precision. "How many fighters does that ship carry?" someone on Wraith's bridge asked. No one had an answer. The launching continued. 150,000, 200,000. Still they came, filling the space between the supercarrier and the Calyx fleet with a cloud of vessels so dense they blotted out the stars beyond. Commander Sarah, Chen watched the deployment from her command chair with calm efficiency. The holographic displays surrounding her showed the position of every craft, every system status, every tactical option. Beside her, the ship's AI displayed its calculations in streams of data that only she and her senior officers could interpret. "Deployment at 60%, her tactical officer reported. "The Calyx fleet is holding position. No aggressive action detected yet. They appear to be in shock," Sarah nodded. "Open a channel. All frequencies. Let the galaxy hear this. Channel open, Commander." Sarah took a breath and spoke clearly. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth colonial ship Eternal Vigil. Supreme Commander Wraith, you were given a warning. Ambassador Rivera told you to reconsider. You chose to ignore that warning. Now you will understand why threatening humanity with extinction was the gravest mistake your empire has ever made." Throughout the Calyx fleet, officers listened in disbelief. The human voice was calm, almost conversational, as if she were discussing a minor trade dispute rather than facing down the most powerful armada the Empire had ever assembled. Wraith found his voice, though it cracked slightly. One ship cannot stand against 12,000. Your size means nothing. We will destroy you and then your colony world. This changes nothing. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Calyx commander still did not understand. Your fleet is impressive, Supreme Commander. You have conquered many species with those ships. But you have never faced humanity's true capabilities. We did not want this confrontation. We hoped it would never come. But since you have forced this moment, let me educate you. She gestured to her tactical officer who input a command. The fighter swarm, now numbering over 300,000 craft, suddenly shifted. They moved as one organism, flowing through space with impossible coordination. Within seconds, they had formed a perfect sphere around the entire Calyx armada. Above, below, forward, behind, to every side, the Calyx fleet found itself enclosed in a shell of human fighters, each one holding position with mathematical precision. Your sensors have detected these fighters, Sarah continued. What your sensors have not told you is that every single craft is controlled by a distributed artificial intelligence network. They do not have individual pilots. They are extensions of this ship's central mind. Every movement is calculated. Every position is optimized. Your fleet is not facing 300,000 separate opponents. You are facing one intelligence controlling 300,000 bodies simultaneously. In the Galactic Assembly Hall, species representatives watched the live feeds with growing shock. Artificial intelligence had been banned for 3,000 years after the AI wars nearly destroyed galactic civilization. The idea that humans had developed stable, controllable AI was terrifying. The idea that they had been developing it in secret for who knew how long was worse. The Kryn ambassador turned to look at the Torvathi delegate. They hid this from everyone. For how long? How many years have they been preparing? The Torvathi's luminous form pulsed with uncertain colors. Long enough to build that. He gestured toward the image of the eternal vigil. That ship did not appear overnight. They must have been constructing it for generations. Wraith, meanwhile, was rallying his confidence. Artificial intelligence or not, we outnumber you. All ships, battle formation Omega. Concentrate fire on that carrier. We will destroy it and every fighter will fall. The Calyx fleet moved into attack formation with practiced efficiency. They had used this tactic to break dozens of defensive lines. Concentrated fire from thousands of ships would overwhelm any shield, destroy any hull. The mathematics were simple. Fire, Wraith commanded. 12,000 Calyx warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy weapons, plasma cascades, kinetic missiles. The amount of destructive force unleashed would have vaporized a small moon. Space between the fleets filled with deadly light as the barrage raced toward the eternal vigil. The human fighters moved. They did not scatter in panic or break formation. They shifted positions with perfect synchronization, each craft moving exactly where it needed to be. The Calyx weapons fire passed through spaces where fighters had been microseconds before. Not a single human craft was hit. Then the fighters returned fire. 300,000 precision strikes launched simultaneously. Each fighter knew exactly where to aim, exactly when to fire. The targeting calculations were performed by an intelligence that could process more data in a second than entire Calyx research teams could analyze in a year. Calyx ships began reporting damage. Shields failing, weapon systems offline, engines damaged. But very few ships were destroyed. The human weapons were not trying to kill. They were disabling, neutralizing threats without unnecessary casualties. They are targeting our critical systems, the Dominance's tactical officer reported in disbelief. They know exactly where to hit to disable without destroying. Every shot is surgical. Sarah watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. This was why humanity had spent 180 years preparing. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to ensure that when someone threatened them with extinction, they could respond with overwhelming force while still maintaining moral high ground. They were not slaughtering the Calyx. They were teaching them. Supreme Commander, I am giving you one opportunity to stand down, Sarah broadcast. Power down your weapons. This battle is already over. You have lost. Wraith's pride would not allow surrender. All ships target their fighters. If we destroy enough of them, their AI will be overwhelmed. The Calyx fleet tried. They fired everything they had at the fighter swarm. But the fighters continued their impossible dance, dodging, weaving, never where the Calyx weapons predicted they would be. The AI calculated trajectories before the Calyx gunners even pulled their triggers. Then larger shapes began emerging from the Eternal Vigil's hangar bays. Destroyers came first, each one 15 kilometers long and covered in the same light-absorbing armor. 2,000 of them took up positions around the supercarrier, their weapons powered up with energy signatures that made the Calyx sensors scream new warnings. Next came the cruisers. 800 heavy cruisers that made the destroyers look small. Their hulls were covered in scale-like plating that shifted and adjusted as the ships moved, some kind of adaptive armor beyond Calyx understanding. Then came the battleships. Then the dreadnoughts, each class larger and more powerful than the last. The Calyx Armada, which had seemed so overwhelming just hours ago, suddenly looked small. The human fleet emerging from a single carrier outnumbered them and outgunned them with technology that existed beyond anything the Calyx Empire had ever encountered. Wraith watched his tactical displays with growing horror. His fleet was being systematically dismantled. Every strategy failed. Every tactic was countered before it could be executed. Ships were being disabled at a rate of dozens per minute. His armada was dying and there was nothing he could do to stop it. All ships retreat, he finally ordered, his voice breaking. Fall back to Calyx space, retreat. But as his ships turned to flee, they found their engines disabled. The human fighters had been targeting propulsion systems all along. The Calyx fleet was trapped, helpless, at the mercy of an opponent who had demonstrated they could destroy them all within minutes if they chose to. Sarah's voice came through the communication channels again, still calm and measured. Supreme Commander Wraith, your fleet is disabled but intact. Your crews are alive. You came here to commit genocide against 2 million human colonists. We could have destroyed every ship you brought. We chose not to. Do you understand the difference? Wraith said nothing. His mandibles hung slack with shock and defeat. Boarding pods will be attaching to your command ships, Sarah continued. You and your senior officers will be taken into custody. Your crews will remain with their ships under guard. When this is over, you will all be returned to Calyx space. But first you need to understand what you have done. You need to see what humanity really is. Throughout the Calyx fleet, boarding pods attached to command vessels. The human marines who emerged wore powered armor that made them look like mechanical titans. They moved with precision and overwhelming force, but they did not kill. They stunned, they restrained, they captured. Within an hour, every senior Calyx officer was in human custody, and not a single one had been killed. In the Galactic Assembly Hall, absolute silence reigned. Every species representative watched the footage in stunned disbelief. The humans had not just won, they had dominated. 12,000 ships defeated in less than 3 hours by forces launched from a single vessel. Ambassador Marcus Rivera stood at his speaking platform and looked around the chamber. Some species looked afraid, others looked awed. A few looked angry, as if humanity had somehow cheated by being more prepared than anyone realized. Marcus spoke softly, but his voice carried through every translation device. For 29 years, humanity has been part of this galactic coalition. We have traded fairly. We have negotiated honestly. We have made friends. And every species here believed they understood us. You saw our 52 registered ships and thought you knew our capabilities. He paused, letting his words sink in. But humanity learned long ago that hoping for peace is not the same as ensuring peace. We learned that the universe can be dangerous, that predators exist, that sometimes strength is the only language that aggressors understand. So while we hoped for the best, we prepared for the worst. The Kryn ambassador found her voice. How long? How long have you been building that ship? 180 years, Marcus replied. 3 human generations born, raised, and died on that vessel, preparing for a day we hoped would never come. Millions of our people dedicated their lives to creating a deterrent so powerful that no one would dare threaten us with extinction. But you hid it from the coalition, the Torvathi delegate protested. You deceived us all. We protected ourselves, Marcus corrected. The coalition charter does not require members to reveal all military capabilities. Every species here has secrets. We simply had a bigger one, and now that secret has saved not just human lives, but Calyx lives as well. We could have destroyed that entire fleet. We chose mercy instead. Sarah Chen stood in the detention area of the Eternal Vigil, looking through the transparent barrier at Supreme Commander Wraith. The Calyx leader sat on a bench designed for his species, his exoskeleton dulled with defeat. Why? He asked quietly. Why show mercy? We came to destroy you. By the laws of war, you had every right to annihilate us. Sarah considered her answer carefully. Because we remember being weak. We remember when humanity was confined to one planet, vulnerable to any threat from the stars. We built this ship not because we wanted to conquer, but because we refused to be victims. And now that we have the power to choose, we choose to be better than our fears. Wraith looked up at her. The galaxy will fear you now. They will see that ship and they will be terrified. Perhaps, Sarah agreed. But they will also see what we did today. We had the power to commit genocide and we chose not to. We defeated you utterly and we are sending you home alive. Fear can be a deterrent, Commander, but it is not our goal. Our goal is to live in peace. And if showing our strength once prevents 1,000 future conflicts, then this was necessary. 3 days later, the Calyx fleet limped back to their space, escorted by human ships. Every Calyx crew member had been treated well, given medical care and sent home with a clear message. Humanity would defend itself absolutely, but it sought no conquest. The message was received. The Galactic Coalition convened an emergency session. Dozens of species sent ambassadors to Earth seeking alliances, trade agreements, and technology-sharing arrangements. Others sent delegations to tour the Eternal Vigil, to understand what humanity had built. A few species lodged protests about the deception, but these protests were quiet and quickly withdrawn. Ambassador Rivera addressed the Coalition one final time before returning to Earth. Humanity has revealed our hidden strength because circumstances forced us to. But let me be clear about what we want. We want to trade. We want to learn. We want to explore the galaxy in peace. We do not want empire. We do not want subjects. We want partners and friends. He gestured to the holographic display showing the Eternal Vigil. That ship represents 180 years of human determination. It represents our refusal to be helpless, but it also represents our values. We had the power to slaughter thousands and we chose mercy. Remember that when you think about humanity's place in this galaxy, far beyond Earth's orbit, hidden in dimensional folds that even the Coalition's best sensors could not detect, 3 more supercarriers continued their construction. Humanity had learned to plan for the long term. The Eternal Vigil was not their only secret. It was simply the first one they had needed to reveal. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of her ship, looking out at the stars. Her daughter, only 8 years old, stood beside her holding her hand. "Mama, will we ever have to fight again?" the girl asked. "I hope not," Sarah replied honestly. "That is why we built this ship. So that showing our strength once might prevent us from ever having to use it again." The child considered this. "So we are strong so we can be peaceful?" Sarah smiled and squeezed her daughter's hand. "Exactly. We are strong so we can choose peace. And that choice, little one, is what makes us truly powerful." The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity was not weak. They had never been weak. They had simply been patient, careful, and prepared. And now that the secret was revealed, the balance of power had shifted forever. Earth's hidden supercarrier had appeared, and the galaxy would never be the same.